Good day, everyone. Happy Wednesday. It's great to be here with you. I've been really looking forward to checking in with you this week because I just get really excited to share all the amazingness of being emotionally empowered. And, there's just so much inspiration that I experience every day from clients who start with us and they are literally in, a mess. They're like, really in what you could call a hole, right? They're really like trying to dig out of just the profound cascade of effects and the web of consequences that happen when one is really emotionally sensitive and tries to go throughout life on the foundation that is not very strong. It's quite sensitive and fragile. And then what happens in just a short period of time, in just a week or two, and what changes so dramatically when you get an emotional foundation put under you that's rock solid. So, I was talking to somebody recently that was really, really super overwhelmed in her life. Like, she owns a business. There is so many challenges that are going on, and she's just so chronically stressed, and there's so many issues with her emotions, her struggles, her stress, her kids, and all. And it's just, big divorce, and the business is starting to fail, and it's just, there's just no room for peace. It's like trying to pay, borrow from Peter to pay Paul, and the stress is just, making her body literally implode. And, when you're really in a situation where you're just like, I'm trying to keep hold everything up. I'm trying to keep the balls going in the air. And you keep dealing with these issues, right? You're having an emotional problem. So now you've got to deal with that. You have to make sure that you're going to therapy, and then you're going to the psychiatrist, and then you're getting the medication, and then you're picking up the medication, and then your kids are both in therapy, and they're having all this chronic stress. And people in the families of our clients, their kids have been absorbing all of this stress, struggling with it at a very young age. Now your kid's got an autoimmune disorder or ADD or any number of chronic issues, anxiety, OCD, and the whole family is affected, right? The relationships are affected, one's health, one's physical health, whether or not you can like get up every day and take care of yourself and exercise, like all of these things are affected, right? When your kids are having these issues, then all of your resources are going to dealing with their anxiety and whatever the disorders happen to look like, or whatever the feelings or emotions or struggles. When you really take a look at it, everything's based in anxiety, right? Whether it's frustration, intolerance, overwhelm, anger, terror, acting out, yelling, reacting, being super volatile and feeling unstable. This is all based in anxiety. Okay, and anxiety is not what people think it is. Like, oh, my kid's anxious, always going to be anxious. I'm anxious, everybody's anxious. That's the way it is. And people have a real huge amount of confusion on anxiety. Right? Because anxiety is not just this thing that happens. It's a thing that occurs. It's an experience that occurs literally, physiologically, and psychologically from the differential of one's emotional foundation and what it needs to be. So anxiety and stress occur at the level that they do based on one's emotional sensitivity. And if you're emotionally sensitive, you're going to feel super uncomfortable. That will develop, it'll grow symptoms. It goes anxiety, then the anxiety goes into addiction. The anxiety goes into anger, frustration, OCD, ADD, all of these things, definitely something like ADD, or eating disorders or whatever it might be. But for an example, ADD, people think, it's something wrong with somebody's brain. Well, having been somebody that was diagnosed with ADD a long time ago, the reality is once I healed myself from all of these things, that was all gone because everything, including ADD, is developed from emotional sensitivity. And then you just have so much overwhelm that you can't focus and your brain doesn't work the way that you want it to. So whether it's any of these things, right? Then, for me, it was developing an eating disorder because I was so chronically uncomfortable when I was younger in my sensitivity that, I could have all the intentions in the world to really be good with food and I'd still end up having my car drive me to the grocery store when I was like, who is driving this car there? And when you're emotionally sensitive, that is what happens. You are not in charge. You're acting out, you're reacting, you're completely, just overwhelmed by a force greater than you. And the force greater than you is emotional sensitivity. And yet people then start to fix these things or attempt to by taking a pill, right? So you're taking some pill for depression or anxiety. And while people get a little bit of relief from that, imagine if your entire foundation is fragile, no matter how well driven you are, no matter how successful you are, if it can't meet the demands of your drive and your demands of your life and therefore hopefully the demands of your dreams that you want, what do we think a little pill is going to be able to do to change the entire level of sensitivity, fragility in one's emotional bandwidth? What can that possibly do? How can that do all the heavy lifting? Right? So it's very fascinating to see what happens. So all of this stuff is going on, and like in referring back to this amazing person that I was talking to recently about coming into the program. And when we looked at what was going on with this medication, what was going on with now all of these things, now it's like the kids therapy, the kids medication, the cost, the time, this thing just got so out of hand, right? It's just like lava going everywhere, and then you're trying to deal with it. And when we looked at all the medications that she was taking, she said something like, these things used to work okay. And when I looked at that, she said, well, it was just a little bit of relief, right? Because now that's everybody's standard. When you're completely emotionally sensitive and you're overwhelmed at like a 10 and you get a little relief and now you're at like an 8 or a 7 or even a 4, you're like, okay, great, that's phenomenal. Even though you are not happy, you are not functioning at your highest level, and you are just managing the effects of the emotional sensitivity, but you're not managing the emotional sensitivity. And when we looked at what was going on with her, as she got more and more worn out because her foundation hadn't changed just because of the medication, like many, many people, the medication just stops working. So then everybody's saying, oh, the medication isn't working anymore. Well, it's because it was trying to be a Band-Aid when you need major construction. So as that Band-Aid starts getting broken down, because you're progressively getting more emotionally sensitive, because just because you take medication to deal with the effects of it, you are not dealing with emotionally strengthening yourself. So that sensitivity just keeps progressing and progressing and progressing. And that's why the medications don't work. And the more that sensitivity is progressing, the more you're breaking down, the more life's getting more problems and overwhelming, the more you're shutting down. And the more extremely overwhelmed and even more emotionally sensitive one gets, because things aren't really getting better. Just because you take a medication and maybe you're like at a 7 or 6 now, feeling better instead of a 10, you still have all the problems that are going on from being at the level 6 or something. So you're still not eliminating the problem. So the problem is still progressing. The problem is still creating all of these issues. And you're breaking down more, and then you're hoping this medication's going to work. Start trying to take more of it. And if you'll notice, for the most part, you've never taken medication and had it absolutely give you the ability to live your full potential as a person. In fact, sometimes it doesn't work at all because it is not even close to what somebody needs to change out of emotional sensitivity. And it creates all its own side effects. I mean, don't even get me started on people at a very young age or at any age taking amphetamine and frying their brain from that. Like that is that's got a lot of long-term side effects, like every single medication, like a antidepressant. I mean, it's insane. So when we were looking at this together and looking at how all these medications she had taken, everything she tried to do, go on to therapy, go on to the doctor, go on to the hormonal doctor, all these things that can be very, very, very helpful. You know, trying to eat perfectly clean, and these things create some benefits. They do, no doubt about it. That's my world. But that is not a solution for changing emotional sensitivity. That's a solution for being healthy and not creating even more emotional sensitivity by eating right and not stressing your body with things that without, you know, undernourishing it or not giving it the fuel that it needs. That just adds more stress and creates more problems. But that is not a solution for changing emotional sensitivity. So for any of you that are like me, you know, your life is very focused on health and well-being, again, if you could just take a look and say, is that completely changing me? Is that allowing me to live my full potential? Do I feel great when I exercise and I'm active and dancing? 100%. Do I feel amazing when I eat really good food? 100%. Because I'm not adding a burden to my body and I'm giving it nourishment and activity and I'm being in it every day. But that's not the same as changing emotional sensitivity at the root level. So I know plenty of people that they're exercising their ass off, and they are some of the most anxious people that I know. They may not be as anxious while they're exercising, and they may feel more energy, but that doesn't mean they're living their potential and feel completely comfortable in their own skin. So as I was discussing with this person that was coming into our program, like what was going on and how overwhelming this is, and then recognizing that, you know, she's like, gosh, I need this help and I need this support, but I don't know where to let go because all these priorities are so overwhelming and I am so burnt out, you know, I don't know how to keep this going. And yet, you know, the reality is it's operating on a complete rocky foundation. So when we really looked at it, because this is something, and I want to share this with all of you because this is what happens for people when they are emotionally sensitive. As time goes on in life, relationships suffer because when you're emotionally sensitive, you're completely anxious, you're not dysregulated, you're not regulated. You might be anxious in the way that you even choose the person. You're not able to be completely focused because you're in anxiety all the time. You might be anxious in the relationship, and anxiousness can look like all kinds of things. I mean, if you just look at every feeling that you have, you can really find anxiousness under it. But stress and anxiety, what that really is nothing more than emotional sensitivity and you not having the emotional strength to not feel all of that stuff. So like so many people, everybody's dug themselves into a hole without meaning to. Right? Because emotional sensitivity over years and years and years just keeps creating more cascades of problems. More energy, more work, more relationships failed, more divorce, more drama. Absolutely never allowing you to hit your financial potential. Never. So then over years, people are just never quite keeping up with what they should be making financially in order to build their life, right? So all this stuff, this emotional fragility impacts everything. And then it's so impactful that you're never building what you want. You're just trying to keep it all going and keep it together. And your growth as a person, let alone your growth financially and in all the ways you want to build a life so that it's really there for you and it's working for you, and then you can really live in it and have it really be another real foundation for you that develops stuff for you, rather than you just trying to kind of put a stick here, stick there, little sort of, you know, things that you're trying to kind of get done, but you're never really building the full foundation for yourself. And the reason you never build the full foundation that lets you relax for 5 seconds is because you don't have the emotional capacity to build you don't have the emotional foundation that is so amazing, massive, strong, and just completely there in a way that you don't have to even think about it. You then will never build any more of a life foundation than your emotional foundation. So for some people, they may have other people paying for their life, and therefore they're able to kind of get by because their entire emotional foundation isn't the only thing supporting them. But for many people, that's not the case. For many people, whether somebody's supporting you or not, that foundation must be the thing that delivers everything for somebody. And the reality is even if somebody's supporting you and you don't have to supply everything, you're still not living your potential, and ultimately people still don't feel like they can build the life that they want, because building comes from standing on a foundation. It comes from living in a solid foundation within your own human self. So while people try to build it like in all these external ways, and that's fine, that's great. Been there, bought many houses, done it all, but not being at home in myself made it so I never felt home, and no matter what type of external foundation that I built. So really to understand that all of these things get impacted. And then what happens is that people feel like, oh my gosh, I need this help and I need this support. I've got to change all of this, but I'm afraid to let go and just do it while everything else is going on, right? And people feel really like they're desperate and they want it and they know they can't survive another day without that emotional foundation. But it can be very scary to go into the transformation while everything else is going on in life. And yet, you know, it would be honestly like, let me just go like try to walk into a new house that I'm going to live in, but the entire bottom's out from under me. I'm going to step in and just fall. So when we really looked at this, it was really important. It was a very important moment, and I wanted to share it with you. When we really looked at it, it was what made the difference for her was that we recognized, we looked at the important thing that I want you all to know today is you cannot dig yourself out of a hole, meaning whatever's going on in your life, all these things that aren't right, all these multiple sets of problems, and all the things that are now bigger than you, and they become all of these different issues you're dealing with, and they're costly and they're timely, and all of these things are going on that because your emotional sensitivity throughout your life created these outcomes, right? They created the consequences. They created the mess, no matter how hard you worked, because people are working their ass off because they have to work so much harder to try to counteract their emotional sensitivity. So for people who are emotionally sensitive, they end up working harder in life, doing life the hard way, getting more burnt out simply because they don't have an emotional foundation that they need at the level they need it. So as I was saying, we looked at the fact that one cannot dig themselves out of a hole. All the stuff that's not working, all the stuff that's overwhelming, and is nothing more than somebody dealing with the symptoms of this very specific problem. You cannot dig out of a hole while you are standing in it. You have no foundation. That's why people feel like they are digging, and they're getting lower in the hole. That's why people feel like they are climbing an uphill battle. Things are getting heavier and heavier and heavier, because you can keep working all you want. You can keep going, oh, I'm going to Band-Aid this problem over here. I'm going to take some meds. I'm going to do this. I'm just going to get by. I'm just going to wait till I get through the winter. I'm just going to wait till I get here. And you blink and you're like 35 and you still are like struggling and you've got financial problems. You blink, you're 40, you're 45, you're 55. And you're in a position where not only are you completely burnt out, your life is bigger than you can handle if you really looked at it. And you don't have the energy because you don't have the emotional capacity. And now your life is this spider web, huge web of things that you've got to do. and you're just trying to self-will it. And that self-will will do whatever it can until you hit a point where a lot of people end up just having total panic attacks because the body is imploding. The body is like, I don't care how big of a mess this is. I am got to shut down because I got to shut down because the body gets so overwhelmed. It's like, I cannot live with this sensitivity and this anxiety. This weight of this is so heavy that the body gives all these signals up to it. So again, when we really looked at this, and it was a very important game changer for this person, the reality was that she was not going to be able to dig out of the hole of her life while standing in it. And that the only rational solution, right? Because let's just be honest, the way that people with emotional sensitivity get through life is a ton of denial, a ton of rationalizations, and they have to create emotional strategies that end up getting them just a little bit through the day, but they never get them out of the hole, standing tall and building the life that they want. So this was really enlightening for her to be able to see, I have got to get on an emotional foundation before I will ever change my life, rein all of these things in, eliminate things that I don't want to need to have to do anymore, and stand tall in my own emotional foundation for the rest of my life. So that was very, very enlightening and very important. And why I wanted to, again, share it with all of you is because being emotionally sensitive, right, having been there and having realized my whole life was being limited because of emotional sensitivity. And my whole life was creating a bunch more problems. And even though I was a badass, working hard, kicking ass, taking names, making an impact, that emotional sensitivity made me work harder because it was harder to focus. It was harder to just completely follow through with things. And I felt so uncomfortable that I would get worn out while I was trying to complete something and build something more. So even though I built a lot, there was this whole other, on a scale of 1 to 10, there was a whole more 50% of what I really wanted to be doing that would really set me up also for the rest of my life and allow my whole life to be nothing more than a building, growing process. So that's what life is meant to be. Life is not meant to be, I'm getting by, I'm piecing it together, I'm just making it through, because there's an expiration date on that. And this is why we end up in this country with people that hit a certain age and they're on disability, they're on SSI, and they are living at the poverty level, if that. And that is not because they didn't have the capacity to do what they needed to do. It's because emotional sensitivity makes it so you cannot build your life. It makes it so you build it only so much. You don't build it enough to truly live in it, inhabit it, relax in it, and have the building process be very consistent and non-stressful. So emotional sensitivity is a very profound, debilitating handicap. I'm just going to keep it real. It will, for most people with it, unless a bunch of other people are trying to prop that person up, they'll either need all of that or they will hit a wall or they'll only build their life so much and they'll feel like, God, I should be further along. And now it looks like I'm going to have to work till I'm 85. Emotional sensitivity makes life happen the hard way. The progressive effect of it makes so many problems because it doesn't allow people to build themselves up, their life up, and then live in that life, that big life, and manage it without sensitivity. So emotional sensitivity will make your life limited, insulated. It will have life being done the hard way. And as I've said already, doing life the hard way will drain you at a very early age, as if you were already 70 and you're like, I'm done, I'm out. But yet you're really young and you need to keep going and you've got a whole bunch of life to live to support yourself, but you don't have the life force in you to do it. So you're like, oh my God, I can't even look forward to the future because I'm exhausted and I'm 28 years old. And this is a real thing, because as people come to work with us, we have people that are 22 years old that have come to us over the years, and they are as worn out as some, 50-year-old person that has, meaning that they have lived that much life. So with all the technology, with all the demands of modern life, emotional sensitivity is really something now that is just beating the hell out of people, because the demands of modern life are huge. The expense of modern life is huge. The long life we're living and capable of living is amazing, but we haven't, as a culture, raised our emotional capacity in order to keep up with that, in order to change and evolve to where we are now and what we need and who we need to be as human beings. So as I was saying, when you think about it, you cannot be digging out of a hole while you can't get out of the hole while you are digging and standing in it. And the way you create that emotional foundation for yourself is that you allow other people, you allow a process and other people to really support you in getting this underneath you immediately, and prioritizing that as the most important thing that you can do for yourself to make everything else in your life functional, foundational, prosperous, and not doing life the hard way. So when we work with people in our program, the process is 12 weeks. And inside of 12 weeks, and actually in just a couple of weeks, people's emotional capacity in about 2 to 3 weeks is up at about 40 to 50% more. So the rest of everything they're doing is just building themselves up, and they immediately are capable of building their life up. And all of the problems solved from that come from emotional sensitivity begin to just dissolve. Their weight problems dissolve, their anxiety dissolves, their depression dissolves, their migraines dissolve, their autoimmune disorders dissolve, their money problems dissolve, their relationship problems dissolve, and everything gets immediately easier quickly. So I'm just wanted to share with all of you who, I know if you're in this group and you are here because you are committed to live your full potential as a person, and you're inside of yourself and you want that, and you're looking outside of yourself, you're seeing other people build their life up. You're seeing a whole world of people now that are building. Well, you're just like, I just need a nap, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you're here, I know you want to live your full potential, and I know inside of yourself where you're not able to do that from emotional sensitivity and from feeling like, I can't be decisive, I'm not committed, I don't follow through, I don't have the motivation, I'm exhausted, whatever it is, all of these things, I procrastinate. These issues are simply symptoms of emotional sensitivity. There's nothing wrong with you. There's no reason that can't change for you, but to recognize that everything that you want to change will not change by simply thinking that you want to change it. It'll not change by going, I'm even more determined to get this project done. You could probably get it done, but you're going to be really uncomfortable, and it may not happen the way you want. It may not have the time frame, and you will essentially be behind the 8 ball in life. And what we found for people who came to us and then subsequently all of this changed for them, what was really important for them is that what the answer to, what they were concerned about really happening when it really came down to it was, even if they went through the rest of their life in survival mode, they said, I'd have to come up with so many rationalizations to myself just to accept what is intolerable for me. And when it really came down to it, I'm probably just going to be eaten alive inside. I'm probably going to get cancer. I'm probably going to develop from the inside out all kinds of even more problems, because I'm hungry inside to be my highest self. I'm hungry to live in fulfillment and relaxation and in development of things and building, and the feedback loop of generating things that then support other people and myself. And so I know if you're all here, you're inside of yourself. And if you are not able to have that emotional foundation you need to meet the demands of your current life, then you won't have it to meet the demands of your dreams. And I think it's one thing to not be able to meet the demands of our current life. That's going to eat us alive, at one level. But when you cannot live the life that would truly be fulfilling to you, then there's something really profound about really the truth. It feels like people just get eaten alive from the inside out. They just get broken down. So why this is so important on so many levels is I know that so many of you you're here because you're struggling with anxiety, and you're here because you're afraid about what's going on with you. You're here because you're afraid about your future. You're here because your life is not what you want it to be. And you're here because you want to take control of your negative emotions, your self-sabotaging behaviors, and your destiny. You want to be in charge of that rather than just life happening to you and you being at the effect of it and just reacting to everything and band-aiding everything, because band-aids are pretty freaking flimsy. And I know you might be intimidated by me. I know you might be intimidated by, are you good enough for our program? Are you just effective and it won't work for you? Maybe you're intimidated by, wow, this might be more painful than just keeping all this plate spinning and doing survival mode, because that's what I know. At least I know how to do that. Even though my energy is going to completely run out, and I'm going to end up with some illness or issue that's going to put me in the hospital and require me to develop myself, because I'm not going to have any other choice by then. So I know this is scary to you. I know it's easier, and we're conditioned to wait until complete crisis to do anything, right? Because it's just so damn scary to say, I don't care what's going on. This is not a foundation that I can stand on. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life creating emotional strategies to just get through the day and live in denial and rationalize what's going on just because I never knew what to do. So if that's the case for you, if you feel like, God, I don't know how I can make this work. I don't know what's possible for me. I feel like I probably don't have the ability to do that. I may not be able to prioritize it or prioritize it financially, whatever it might be. I understand all of that. That's the effect of the problems that you need to fix. And yet, if you don't find a way to prioritize dealing with them at the root level and make a commitment to it, which is where everything can happen, everything that you possibly need can happen from that commitment, because you're focused only on what you are wanting, only on what you need, and everything else will fall in line around that. So the difference is, spending your life having emotional strategies that developed naturally in you, because when you're emotionally sensitive, we just have so many strategies. We just accept things. We just make stories about why this is okay. We, settle for being sick and getting sympathy, because that's the closest thing to fulfillment we might be getting, and we don't know if we're ever going to get fulfillment. So we stay in this struggle. We identify with the struggle, and then that struggle is at least something that makes us feel like we're somebody, right? I've got this struggle. I've got this illness. I've got this addiction. I've got this eating disorder. I've got 100 pounds of extra weight on me. And when all of this has happened, when we feel so sensitive and anxious, and then we're addicted, we're overweight, we've got migraines, we're having panic attacks, we are barely able to pay for groceries, what keeps happening throughout life is you have developed emotional denial rationalization strategies. Not because, as somebody once said to me, he said, my wife loves to be the victim. And I said, that's not true. She doesn't know what other strategy to do to get through life because of that emotional sensitivity. So if you don't want to spend your life having to continue to rationalize the life that you have and yearn for the life that you really want, And you don't want to have to spend the rest of your life coming up with rationalizations for why you didn't, why you're not, and why you never lived the life that you were capable of, when you really look at how freaking smart and brilliant and creative you are, and how well-intended and how service-oriented you are. So if you want to spend your life continuing to have emotional strategies that just get you through the day because this is what it feels like your lot in life is, then you'll need to continue to create more of them, because as you get weaker and sicker and more vulnerable, more progressively overwhelmed, more progressively expensive as a person without the capability to have the finances to support yourself or to support a lifestyle that you build. If you want to spend your life getting by and just keeping it together and thinking, hey, when I'm 80, I guess I'll keep doing this, you really want to take a look at that, because it's a big illusion when you're in that denial, because there's a certain point where your body will not do anything that your drive wants it to do. It just won't be capable of it, and you will be conditioned to be so overwhelmed that then you develop mental health disorders that are very extreme. Things like dementia, extreme depression, memory loss, all of these things keep developing out of emotional sensitivity. They are not random. They are not hereditary. The emotional sensitivity and never dealing with it is what's hereditary. So, oh, hi, Mitz. Hello. I'll just say hi. Hi, Mitz. Love you. Love you. One of my superstars. So, and I'm really here before I go. I'm going on an amazing trip where I'm going to learn so many different things, and I want to just leave you all with as much service that I can give you. Because, and Mitzi, I love you, babe. Mitzi, I love you, love you, love you. All of our clients are all very, very brave people, and I know you are too. And they were overwhelmed, and they had so much going on, and they weren't at their financial level that they wanted to be, but they all knew that inside them and along the way, they know that capacity is there. They produce a lot of great things in life, but it always felt like it wasn't at the level it was meant to be. So if you don't want to go through the rest of your life struggling with this sensitivity, needing strategies to get by, and accepting less than you want to have, especially for how hard you've worked, and then how hard you're going to have to keep working when there's going to be limitations to that, then just keep doing what you're doing. Because a lot of people do that, and there's a lot of regret, and yet people still make it through. And as I said, another person recently just said, if this just continues, I guess I'll just have to come up with more denial stories to myself about why I never stepped up and lived the life I was meant to. And I said, what do you think that's going to bring to you? And she said, I will be the saddest person in the world. And so I don't want that for any of you. So I'm just reaching out to inspire you to say that it's okay what you never got. None of us ever got it, right? We got some great, great stuff, right? It carried us to the point we are now. But if you're wanting to live with the most powerful emotional foundation that you can have, that will impact every moment of every day and make it the maximum potential that it can be, and then you can stand strong on that in every moment, no matter what, a conversation, a relationship, a business deal, like my mom got sick recently, I had that great emotional foundation to never be afraid and to be of absolute support and knowing exactly what outcome I was going to help her create. So if you'd like to go through life feeling so solid and secure and eliminating and extinguishing a life of emotional sensitivity and the stress that comes from that, it really doesn't take as much as you might think. So I'm encouraging all to reach out, get on my calendar. And if you haven't watched our free training and you join the group, I'm going to post that as well so you can watch that and get even more of a sense of insight on what I'm talking about. So even if you think it might not be possible, even if you're afraid, know that that's part of your emotional sensitivity and things that you've had to tell yourself because things have been so disappointing. But they haven't been disappointing because they've really been disappointing. they've been disappointing because of the emotional sensitivity and what that creates, because weaker emotional sensitivity creates lower level outcomes in our life in every way. So I'm a person that's a very deeply spiritual, but also very practical person. And when we're at one level, then that's what's going to create something on a physical level. So your life, we can just like take whatever happened before and know that it was nothing more. All the positive things were the best of you and what was inside of you coming out and doing great. And all the stuff that you've been disappointed about, things that have been awful, horrible, disappointing, just dysfunctional, all you have to know is that had nothing to do with some inherent thing about you that means that's who you are. It's a very simple thing that the more emotionally sensitive somebody is, that's all is needed, is to extinguish the sensitivity and create that foundation. Then all of those things that happened in the past, they are irrelevant. And it doesn't matter what it was. When you gain emotional strength, then your present and every moment and your future are literally built from that strength. And then there's just nothing that can get in your way. Then you're just unstoppable. And I really love that for all of you. And yet I know it's important for each person to be done with the suffering and ready whenever they're ready. But I think if there's any part of you that can connect to the person that you want to be and you know you are inside, and let that drive you to take action to see what's possible for you, then that's what makes things change. But when we make decisions from where we are in our emotional sensitivity, then we'll just kind of continue that emotional sensitivity because it's running the show. So I'd like all of you to really connect to the person that you know you are and the life you're meant to be living, and just give yourself that opportunity to see what's possible. And I would really, my team and I would look forward to hearing your story and what's going on and looking at how things can be different for you. So in the meantime, everyone, I am going to be on an amazing conference next week, at an amazing conference. So I keep growing and learning and developing more and more of my emotional capacity to serve all of you and serve all people that I can in my lifetime, to extinguish emotional sensitivity and build that emotional strength and put people back on the path to their potential. So if you don't hear from me until maybe like next Friday or Saturday, know that I'll be thinking about all of you and I really will be missing you. And, my truth about all of you that have joined this group is you're so courageous. I really appreciate your connecting and showing up for yourself. And I just have so much love for all of you. All right, everyone, take care. Bye-bye.